I'm willing to talk about other topics as well, but I'm probably not as educated on those. We'll see. If it's a case from the past, I probably have some information. If it's a newer case, maybe I haven't dived into it. See Mifo from Pennsylvania, right across the border from New Jersey. Welcome, Michelle. Good to see you. I think we spent more time on TikTok back in the day, and now I'm over here on YouTube, and I haven't touched TikTok a lot. I don't know whether to 100%. I've given up on TikTok, and I feel like I shouldn't, but I don't have enough time in the day to make content for TikTok and for YouTube. And when I was making long form videos on YouTube and then trying to splice them up and put them on TikTok, some people were bitching that I wasn't having any original content, and I just was like, screw it. TikTok is not working for me, but if I should reconsider, maybe I should reconsider. Any other comments, questions? Like I said, this is kind of an open night. I just wanted to, we won't stay here. Australia, by the way, thank you for checking in from Australia. It's amazing. We've got several people from Australia, several people from parts of England, all over the place. And it's funny because when I look at my analytics, it seems like everybody's in the US and very smattering small amounts other places. But when we get to the comment sections, I got places from all over. Indiana. Welcome, Angela from Indiana. Thanks for checking out the show. Have you been here before? You probably have been here before, but thanks for checking out the show. From the Poconos. For the Poconos. That is obviously near and dear to one of the stories in my wheelhouse, is it not? So good to see you from the Poconos. Have you been in Let's see. Have you seen Birdie's video regarding GPT chat to analyze the BK plea deal? Was interesting. I did not see his breakdown on that. Birdie and I, we go live together every Monday, and a lot of times we save up things that have happened during our respective kind of going our separate ways during the week, and then we get together and we talk about, hey, what's been going on in your world this week? And so I'll have to ask him about that if I don't see it sooner. Maybe I should check it out. I'm on exit 19 on 80. I'm not sure where that's at. From Michelle, are you in the Poconos? Have you seen? Okay, so I'm kind of caught up on. Anyways, yeah. Say something that you want to ask a question about. Have me riff about. I don't know if you've seen my latest videos on the Lisk Gilgo Beach. I'm starting to do more videos on that. I have another one in the queue that's really, really interesting. It has to do with all those controversial things like swingers parties and partner swapping, and whether or not Rex Heuermann and his wife were into sharing partners, and how many times somebody. Anyways, we'll save that for the long form video maybe. Anyways, any other comments, questions? I'm here to just kind of chill, relax. Yeah, that would be yeah, I'm open for anything. Let's give it to me. Give it to me. What do we got? Anything? So what have I got? So this week, like I said, I've got another video to put out on Luigi Mangione, which is the bookshelf or the book series that I'm doing. We're reading Industrial Society and from Ted Kaczynski. I almost said Lazinski. Ted Kaczynski's manifesto. Have you caught up on Tom Dickey's response? I didn't see anything in the response that was. I mean, maybe I missed something, but first of all, the response I got wasn't on the official legal paper. It was like another legal source, and it was a scanned copy. It wasn't dated. So I'm not saying it wasn't a real legitimate thing. I think it was, but it seemed to be correct if I'm wrong. If it's just a fight over whether or not Luigi Mangione can appear in person in Pennsylvania, I did see that. The problem that I have, of course, is we're not even, why the hell haven't they ruled on that arrest? That's the thought that's killing me. Like whether or not, I mean, yeah, maybe they're trying to say before you rule on their arrest, Luigi should be able to be there in person for that arrest. But I don't know why they can't make a decision in that arrest. It's absolutely ridiculous. A massive, yeah. So realistically, Kimberly says that's a massive dumping ground. Do you really think those are his? No, at the moment, and I'm early in my investigation, in the moment, I do not believe that all of the bodies that they have found are Rex's. I absolutely do not believe that they're Rex's. I think some of them probably are, but I certainly don't think that all of them are. I think the MOs on the killings are way too different, and I don't buy some of the early documentaries that are suggesting, well, he just evolved as a killer over the years and changed his tactics. I think some of the tactics aren't a matter of evolving, it's a matter of different killers. And the really crazy thing for me is how many law enforcement officers knew Rex Heuermann allegedly and may have helped cover up on things that were going on. That's where the story gets absolutely freaking off the wall crazy for me. The doc link was posted on Luigi's site, so it's legit. Perfect. Let me go take a peek here real quick. LuigiMangioneInfo.com. Oh, there it is, 7.3. The response to the Commonwealth on 7.3. Okay, that's the same document I saw. And although I didn't see the time stamp, date stamp in the bottom of it. So I could pull that up on screen if we have nothing else. Let's see. Do I want to do that? Do I want to do that? Let's see. Share screen. Luigi Mangione CDN. That's what I want to do. I want us to share one. Is it that one? It is that one. Share. All right. Add to the stage. So this is the one. So I did see this. And I'm going to keep looking for comments just to see if something new comes up. Yeah, so this is all the writ of habeas corpus and the ability to attend in person stuff, if I remember right. It's weird that they scan this in crooked, sideways, which really bugs the piss out of me. That's part of the reason why I was like, man, this document's not date stamped when I first saw it. And it's crooked scanned. They still have it crooked scanned, and it's not much to it. There's not a lot to say. Do you have a more specific question? Maybe I'll put it that way, because yeah, I didn't feel like there was a whole lot there to really riff off of. We're still waiting for something with some meat on it in that case. Yeah, I don't know why they're being so difficult over transporting them there. Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I feel it's a little bit. I hate to say this, but it feels like it's a little bit of one-upmanship, right? Which is that Luigi probably doesn't need to be there in person. I feel like they're purposely trying to make the state spend money and make it difficult for them, which, to be fair, is perfectly fine. Like if they're gonna accuse the man in 3 different jurisdictions and bounce him around like a ping pong ball, then certainly he doesn't need to make it easy for them to treat him in that way and to make him go on cameras instead of being in person. So good for them for doing that. The whole forcing their hand to say you can pay to transfer him to Pennsylvania and you can pay to transfer him back it's a little bit of one-upmanship back and forth on it. I think it's a little bit of game playing, but it's okay. Right, and it's your constitutional right to appear in person. Right, and this is the thing. They're using this cloud in a way to basically try to continue to set precedents in America that the rule of you have the right to appear in person essentially can be interpreted as on camera is the same as being in person. So if they keep getting away with this, that they can say, hey, when it says you have the right to appear and face your, so the wording is basically you have the right to face your accusers, right to face your accusers. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to reinterpret, or not reinterpret, try to clarify that facing your accusers doesn't mean you have to physically be standing in the same room with them. You could be on camera. So this is all going, I think, towards setting a legal precedence and whether or not we can say that it still meets the criteria of facing your accusers if you're on camera. So, good questions. Michelle says, I think an argument can be made that the hearing about evidence suppression is relevant to the federal case as well as New York. Abso-freaking-lutely, yes. If you are not familiar, what we're talking about is Luigi Mangione, who is basically in federal custody in New York and awaiting state charges in the state of New York, was arrested in Pennsylvania. That arrest may have been entirely illegal. And yet, and if it was entirely illegal, a massive amount of the state's and federal's case against Luigi Mangione goes out the window. A massive amount of their case goes out the window. But because Pennsylvania refuses to rule on whether or not the arrest was legal or not, the state and the federal government in New York is continuing to act like the stuff is completely legal and use it in their argument of what they have against Luigi Mangione. getting my case mixed up there. So it becomes it's a shitstorm because, again, Pennsylvania should have ruled a long time ago about the legality of that arrest, which I believe is 100% illegal. And then the state shouldn't be able to use what they did, which is coming up with a huge document that they put out to the public saying, this is what Luigi had on him when we arrested him in Pennsylvania. Actually, they didn't arrest him. This is what Luigi had on him when he was arrested in Pennsylvania, when all of that may be illegal. So yeah, it's they're really playing some games in this case, in my opinion. We're talking currently, Brian, we're talking currently about Luigi Mangione, the alleged shooter of Brian Thompson in New York City on December 4th, I believe it was. That's who we're talking about at the moment. But the show is wide open. I don't have an agenda tonight. We've got about, 45 more minutes of whatever you want to talk about. Luigi was not the shooter. It will come out in the wash. There are definitely people who believe that Luigi Mangione was not the shooter. There are people who believe that Luigi Mangione was the shooter, but who cares? There are people who believe that Luigi Mangione was involved with a group of people, and or there are people who believe that Luigi Mangione had nothing to do with this and was completely a random guy that they fingered for the event. So it is all over the place, which makes the story super interesting to cover, to see which one of us is going to come out right in the end of the day. How was the arrest in Pennsylvania illegal? Here's how the arrest was illegal. This is something I covered in a lot of deep dive analysis. And I said this early on, and then I've had multiple attorneys come on and say that this is accurate and my reading of this is accurate. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it's not the same in every state, but in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it is not illegal to provide false identification to a police officer. I know that sounds absolutely, completely nut baggage to most people who think that if an officer asks for your ID, if you provide them a false ID, that's a crime. It is not a crime in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And in fact, the Supreme Court and the appellate courts have overruled arrests where people gave false identification to police officers and upheld that it is not illegal to provide false identification to a police officer until, and here's the caveat, until you have been informed that you're under investigation, or you've been read your Miranda rights. So in the case of Luigi Mangione, the officers showed up, they pinned him in a corner, they asked him for identification before telling him, in fact, they explicitly told him he wasn't under investigation, that he had just been, they were called there because he had been loitering too long, he'd stayed there too long. They asked him for identification. He provided identification that said that he was Mark Rosario. That act of presenting that identification was not illegal in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Later, they said that was part of the reason why they arrest him, was providing false identification to the police officer. However, his attorney came out with a big, huge thing saying the same thing I was saying, which is that it is not illegal in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to provide false identification to a police officer until you've been informed you're under investigation. And he was not for 17 minutes. During that 17-minute investigation where they asked Luigi Mangione to stand up, they patted him down with a Terry frisk multiple times. They took his bag and they separated him from his backpack and then illegally searched his backpack before reading his Miranda rights, before telling him he was under investigation. They searched his backpack. Then they found some stuff in his backpack and they repacked his backpack. And after 17 minutes or more of this, an officer says to another officer, "Have you read him his Miranda rights and informed him he's under investigation?" Another officer said no, he had not. And so an officer then read him his Miranda rights and said these words: "Now that you have been informed that you are under investigation, do you still want to give us the name Mark Rosario?" And at that point, he shook his head no. He stopped talking. He exercised his right to not speak and have anything he said held against him in a court of law. And when they said, "Now that you've been read your rights, you have the right to remain silent. Do you want to give us that name, Mark Rosario, again?" He shook his head no. Therefore, further pointing out, Luigi Mangione knew it was not illegal to provide them with a false identification of Mark Rosario up until the point that he's been informed he's under investigation. Once they told him he was under investigation and read him his Miranda rights, he no longer told them that he was Mark Rosario. So that's where that arrest was illegal, because they said, well, you gave an officer a false identification. That's why we arrested you. His attorney, Thomas Dickey, came out and said that it's not illegal in this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And then his attorney in New York, because after that arrest, which was illegally done, and his backpack was illegally searched and seized, he was extradited to New York for murder of Brian Thompson. His attorney in New York Karen Ignifilo filed a massive document saying the same thing that Thomas Dickey did and the same thing that I did. That is an illegal arrest. It is not illegal for Luigi Mangione to provide false identification to a police officer before he's been informed that he's under investigation. And you illegally searched and seized his backpack. Therefore, everything that you found on him is fruit of the poisonous tree. You can't use it against him. Despite the fact that Thomas Dickey has said that, and despite the fact that Karen Ignifilo in New York has said that that was illegal, despite that, the prosecution, if you will, in Commonwealth responded with a response to Thomas Dickey saying it was totally a legal arrest. The officers came there, and as soon as the officer recognized Luigi Mangione as being the shooter from New York, he had every right to start an investigation. And it's just an oversight that he didn't inform him he was under investigation. It should have been obvious to Luigi Mangione he was under investigation because of the questions they were asking him. Therefore, they argue it was totally a legal arrest. I've had attorneys on my show talk to me and say, no, that was not a legal arrest. It was an illegal search and seizure and an illegal arrest. Meanwhile, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the judge has refused. So we have the defense saying it was an illegal arrest. We have the prosecution saying, no, it was a legal arrest. The judge is now supposed to view both arguments and decide, was it legal or was it not legal? That judge and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has drugged their ass for 2 months now, not making a ruling. Meanwhile, while not making a ruling about what everybody who's got any fucking law degree in America understands that was an illegal arrest, while they're not making a ruling, New York decided to go ahead and use the fruit of the poisonous tree and put out a document saying, here's all the reasons why we're prosecuting Luigi Mangione for murder. He had this in his backpack. He had that in his backpack. He provided false identification. And his lawyer, once again, in New York, Karen Ignifilo said, hold the phone. That arrest is illegal. And Pennsylvania still hasn't ruled on it. So we still wait in America. We still wait for these guys, these people to all collude together to not make a ruling in Pennsylvania about the illegal arrest, which was illegal, in my opinion. And so they refused to rule on it and then allow the state and the federal government to continue their case and put information into the public eye about all the things Luigi Mangione had on him, allegedly, which are not even going to be admissible in court if a judge worth his salt or her salt rules properly that that was an illegal search and seizure. There you go. That was the answer. Wasn't an officer's body cam turned off for several minutes as well? Christine, you are talking about a moment. A female police officer, I believe it was searching Luigi's backpack when he had been separated from his backpack. By the way, that's part of illegal search and seizure. She tried to argue that there was a fear for the officers and the patrons of McDonald's that Luigi Mangione could have had some kind of weapon in his backpack or a bomb or something like that, even though Luigi Mangione was facing a wall with his hands behind his back, and the backpack was between a wall of officers were between him and his backpack. No way at all Luigi Mangione could reach his backpack in any stretch of the imagination. That backpack was illegally searched. They found something. They repacked the backpack. And then, yes, that officer, I believe the same female officer, put the backpack in the back of her patrol car, turned off her body camera, and for, I think, 10 minutes, her camera was off, meaning we don't know what got packed into that backpack or what happened to the backpack. Chain of custody is gone. What we know is when it shows up at the police station, it's got a whole bunch of new things in the backpack that weren't listed in the original search of the backpack, which was illegal. So yeah, sketchy as fuck. It's sketchy. I find it interesting. Pam Bondi has been silent about Vance Bolcher, who murdered 2 Democratic lawmakers, yet she's had plenty to say about Luigi. True. Vance killed, didn't he kill 2 people and almost killed 2 other people, like shot 4 people. I think he shot 2 couples, one of which I think he murdered, right? And 2 who lived through it. And they did mention that he had a manifesto, but Pam Bondi has been strangely silent about it while telling everybody in America that Luigi Mangione killed an innocent man and father of 2 and deserves the death penalty. She's just a devil woman with evil. I can't stop it. You got the little music notes and everything. I freaking have that on an old playlist because I'm an old guy, and every once in a while, I'll even listen to that song. Anyways, what else? What else do we got? Killing some time, seeing if there's any other comments. It's nice a little bit to talk about Luigi Mangione. We haven't talked about Luigi Mangione for a long time, as he just kind of has faded off into the sunset, because Pennsylvania won't rule on it. Off topic. Okay, let's put this on screen. So off topic, I'm legally blind in one eye, other eye perfect sight. I have blue tint. I see you have yellow. Is that the better for glare? I'm working on figuring out what is the best thing. I did turn off the blue tint on my screen. I think I just need to tilt the screen so it's away. So when I wear glasses like this, you don't see a reflection on here. So I'm not sure. Carry on. Any other comments? Again, Luigi Mangione, Rex Heuermann, the Lisk. Ruby has a question. Ruby, so they still have to look into the communications about the perp walk and how was it choreographed. That should help. Is that the question you were saying that they had? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. I mean, yes, I think Karen Ignifilo had some questions about the perp walk and who was involved in various parts of that, but I don't know I don't remember what her exact question was on it. But the perp walk, she clearly stated, was a violation of her client's civil liberties, having that kind of prejudicial perp walk where the mayor of New York literally comes out and meets him like he's the worst criminal on the face of the planet. And as Karen Ignifilo so aptly pointed out, 300 and something people were murdered in New York last year, but none of them had the mayor of New York show up to escort them off of a helicopter with armed guards all around them with machine guns and huge beefy dudes treating him like he's the most wanted criminal in America. And she's like, so why is Luigi Mangione getting a personal perp walk from the mayor on camera when 300 and something other people were murdered in New York and didn't get that kind of treatment? So it was a clear prejudicial message they were trying to send about Luigi Mangione. And of course, they're not going to deal with that. They're just going to ignore it. I don't think anybody's going to hold anybody accountable for what they did. It's just like one of those things where they say, well, duly noted that you feel that was unfair. So thanks for letting everybody in America know that you think it was unfair. Duly noted. We're not going to do anything about it. It's done. What else? Any other comments? Again, Luigi Mangione, Brent Kohberger, Rex Heuermann, Idaho 4, Lisk, Gilgo Beach, United Healthcare, related issues to United Healthcare, any of my book series, any of my videos that you watch, any content creators that are covering the same kind of stuff that you want to know if I watched one of their videos, and I could maybe sometimes I do. I can't believe slimy Mayor Adams is running for mayor again. That guy and his deal that he made to get himself off of the hook for his own criminal activity that potentially, allegedly, which we'll never know because he just cut a deal. Disgusting. Disgusting. Justice in America is not equal. It depends on who you know, how well connected you are, and how much money you have. Fortunately, if you want to say that for this situation, fortunately for Luigi Mangione, he has money. So he gets to have a nice defense with some of the best attorneys in America. Unfortunately for Brent Kopacka, depending on how you feel about it, he got a public defender and had to take a plea deal. So there you have that. Of course, one can argue maybe Brent Kopacka actually did it. But the differences in their attorneys should be night and day if you watch them. Do I think that they will lift the gag order in the Kohberger case? I think they're supposed to. Do I think they will? No. And part of the reason why I think they won't is because at least one of the people involved with the case, they have said is a confidential informant protected by the federal government, the FBI. Because of that, they will probably continue to say, and here's the irony of this, they will continue to say that person, that confidential informant's identity and what they know needs to continue to be protected because of a fear for their life. Oddly enough, what do they have to fear? If the killer's behind bars and there's no killer on the loose, what does anybody have to fear anymore? The bad guy's been put away. At this point, tell us who the confidential informant is. I think I know who the confidential informant is, but I think they're gonna hide behind the shield of somebody still is being protected, and therefore we can't let everybody know because it might lead you down the path to finding out who's being protected, and therefore for their safety, which I find is odd, because what is there to be safe about? If Brent Kopacka is the guy who did it and he's in jail, nobody's getting to the confidential informant, so we should know. I do have, by the way, queued up a crap ton of FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, which I will be sending out requesting EMS records, police worn body cams, 911 call logs, information from the coroner's office, which I found that maybe they won't even tell you about the wounds and the autopsies for something like 30 or 50 years after a person's dead. That would be ridiculous, but I've got it all queued up and ready to go. I don't think that any of that will break until at least sentencing, because technically Brian Kohberger technically could change his plea all the way up to the sentencing date. So once sentencing happens and we know it's a done deal, signed, dotted, crossed T's, all that good stuff like that, at that point, there's no real good legal reason to keep everything under gag order. So Freedom of Information Act letters will be flying. If I send it early, they'll probably say, sorry, it's still sealed, and then I'll have to send it again. So I'm just going to hold off until the sentencing. I am planning, by the way, to be in the courtroom for the sentencing. That's the plan, at least right at the time being. I don't know exactly how that's going to work because the courthouse opens at 8. I think the hearing for the sentencing is at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I may have to go stay out at 3 o'clock in the morning all night long in front of the courthouse, wait till the doors open at 8, and then go stand inside a line, which they won't want you standing in line inside the courthouse itself when your trial date is not, or time is not until an afternoon. So I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but I'm going to give that a shot as well. Does anybody know what the scope of the FBI's parallel investigation is in Idaho? I do not. I would like to know. I would like to know. So if somebody thinks they know, I would love to hear it. Yeah, Hippler did say that they will keep the gag up until sentencing. We shall see. And Crystal, I think that's the way it should be, because again, Kohberger technically could change his plea once again. So it should probably be gagged until then. Now, if Hippler, now here, I didn't see this quote. If Hippler said something to the effect of the gag order will stay in place until, that almost suggests that he's saying it's going to be lifted at some point, as it should. But I'm a skeptic. I bet you they keep shit sealed long after the sentencing. That's just me. Kelly, don't get me started on Rex. But I'm going there. Like, I won't get you started, but I'm diving into the Rex Heuermann story. So I'm already super intrigued. My channel in particular focuses a lot on exposing mainstream media's bias and law enforcement corruption. There is law enforcement corruption to go out the ass in the Rex Heuermann case. That's not to say in any way, shape, or form that I want to try to defend Rex Heuermann's rights or anything like that. What I want to do is I want to expose the police corruption, whether or not police officers were involved in covering up for a serial killer or serial killers, because that area appears to be a dumping ground for multiple killers for a very long time. Are all the bodies being attributed to Rex Heuermann, his kills? And is there even possibility that law enforcement is either involved in some of the kills or covering up some of the kills? Were they friends with Rex Heuermann 30 years ago? Did they go to swingers parties with them and share girls with them? Sure seems like it from what we're seeing and the early indications, which makes that story super effing intriguing. So I won't get you started, but I will get started. Any other comments? Any of those cases? Luigi Mangione, Rex Heuermann, Brian Kohberger, other questions, comments, concerns? I know for a lot of people, these cases are kind of cold, kind of dead. You know, Luigi's got nothing going on. Kohberger's supposed to be done. Rex Heuermann's not going to happen for another year or so. So, you know, we're kind of in a lull at the moment. I think I know who the informant is. BF. Yes, I believe the confidential informant being protected by the federal government is Bethany Funk. I do believe that, yes. What else do we have? Any comments, questions? Anybody want me to riff on any of that and why I think that's the case, or outstanding questions you might have? Did anybody watch any of my recent videos, have questions from my recent videos, want me to recap anything that happened in the courtroom last time I was there? I didn't see Dylan. Apparently I was sitting right behind Dylan at the last plea deal. But I didn't realize I was sitting behind her because I was expecting her to be in a different place. And I wouldn't even expect her to be in the courtroom, but apparently she was in front of me. Crazy that. Any other comments, questions? Riff away on Mrs. Funk. Sure. Oh, and I have a question that was posted above. Renee, Let me get this question real quick, and then we'll riff away on Funk. I was watching some random Kohberger videos, and someone said the reason why he pled guilty is because he didn't want his mother and father to be cross-examined by the prosecution. Is that true? That is an allegation with a lot of possible support for it, especially that when Steve Gonsalves said on the courthouse steps, we know when his parents booked their flights. That's what he kind of indicated. And the press said, what does that mean? He goes, just we know when they booked the flights. I think the parents came out prior to the plea deal, came out to Idaho prior to the plea deal. And the speculation is, and it's speculation, that Bryan Kohberger's parents may have been pressured to go for possibly going to jail for knowing that their son had confessed something to them and helping hide it, and that they may have been brought up and said, hey, look, we have evidence that you guys knew your son did something or was involved in it and didn't come forward. Therefore, not only is your son going to go to jail, but you're going to go to jail as well for an accomplice after the fact. If that was put on, then that would explain why the family came out to give a last minute, hey, get your son to confess to this thing, agree to it, and this all goes away and you guys don't have to go to jail. But it's speculation. Now, Bethany, some people are asking, who is Bethany? And somebody wanted me to rip on Bethany. And not rip, I mean riff, not rip on Bethany. All right. So let me do that for a few minutes, if you will. So in the Idaho 4 case, 2 people survived. 4 of the 6 people in the house were murdered. 2 of them survived. One of the survivors was Dylan Mortensen. The other survivor was Bethany Funk. Bethany Funk was in the basement on the ground floor of the building. Dylan was on the main floor where 2 of the victims died, and she was right below 2 of the other victims that died. The killer allegedly walked past Dylan Mortensen. She saw his bushy eyebrows, and saw him leave the back door. What we've heard very little about is the fact that both Dylan and Bethany were texting each other from the house, talking about what had happened that night and the intruder. It came out through various leaked sources that Bethany Funk, according to some leaked sources, actually saw something that night. She saw an individual inside the kitchen putting clothes into a plastic bag and leaving the house in their underwear. Now, that never officially made it to the court record, and Bethany has been strangely silent. Bethany then was moved out of the state, out of Idaho, and the defense said Bethany Funk has exculpatory information. What does that mean? It means the defense believes that Bethany Funk saw something that night that would exonerate Bryan Kohberger. I.e., here's a perfect example. If Bethany Funk came up the stairs and saw somebody putting bloody clothes into a plastic bag and leaving the back door, and if that person she saw was not Bryan Kohberger, that'll destroy the entire effing case. And so one argued what happened, the reason why we haven't heard from Bethany Funk is she was quickly whisked out of state, put under federal protection as a protected witness, and then the defense put in a request to subpoena Bethany Funk back to Idaho to testify about what she really saw that night. They fought that. And in fact, they mocked Ann Taylor and the defense of Bryan Kohberger, saying, you're just grasping at straws. And the defense is like, no, Bethany Funk saw something that night and she needs to come testify. The government has been protecting Bethany Funk and fighting it. And when they lost that battle, that's part of the reason why I think they lost the plea deal. The government was never going to allow Bethany Funk to come back in court and testify for what she really saw, which might have been exculpatory information to prove that Bryan Kohberger wasn't the person she saw inside the house, which means either there was multiple killers, and that screws up the official thing, because again, Hitler made Bryan Kohberger say on the stand, you did it and you did it alone. So if there was other people there, and if Bethany was going to come into court and say, yeah, I saw somebody at the back door, but it wasn't Bryan Kohberger, then he couldn't have done it alone. So even if you say he did it, but maybe he didn't do it alone, Bethany could destroy that plea deal. And so Bethany was never going to be allowed to come and testify. And again, they ridiculed anybody for saying that she had some kind of exculpatory information, even though Steve Gonsalves, with leaked text messages, said, do you remember Bethany Funk said she saw somebody in the house putting bloody clothes into a plastic bag and leaving in their underwear? That is, I believe, a legitimate text conversation between Steve Gonsalves and an undercover kind of person who was texting him. And he did admit that Bethany Funk saw somebody in the house putting clothes into a bag and leaving in their underwear. That was not, I don't believe that was Bryan Kohberger. I think that's why the defense wanted Bethany Funk brought back. And by the way, we also know from leaked information that we shouldn't have had that multiple members of the grand jury. A grand jury is convened in private. The defense is not there for a grand jury. The grand jury's entire purpose is to look at the state's position, their evidence, and decide whether or not there's enough evidence to proceed to trial. The defense doesn't get to come and argue anything. They don't even get to be part of that, and it's all done in secret. But here's the thing. Someone, and I believe that it was leaked later on that it was James Patterson, because James Patterson, the novelist, is now coming out with a new book on the Idaho 4. It should be out in a couple of weeks. James Patterson managed to get a hold of a couple of the grand jurors who are in that grand jury. He, via other people, related back to Steve Gonsalves that the grand jurors did not believe Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk and thought that those girls needed to be investigated, possibly put in jail for their role in the murders. And I think that's the reason why Steve Gonsalves is so hot that there will not be a trial, because there are other people involved and the trial is now over. It will never happen. And Brent Kopacka just took the deal for everyone. I did it alone. End of story. We'll never hear what Bethany Funk saw that night. She'll never be forced to testify. The government's been protecting her. In my opinion, there's a lot of shady shit. I hope that explains the Bethany Funk situation as best as you can understand. Hopefully you understand what I was saying. How did BK know they didn't have cameras? 6 parked cars out front of a 3-story house. DM gave them him the info. So DW has got a great point, which is that, again, the argument is that Brent Kohberger allegedly just decided to hit a house with a shit ton of parked cars out front, not knowing what the hell he's getting into. He just decided to randomly hit a house with a whole bunch of people parked out front, not knowing what he's getting into. What killer would do that? It makes very little sense. On top of that, how does he know that they don't have cameras in the house? How does he know any of those things? So there's a lot of questions that are unanswered about the idea that Brent Kohberger just randomly decided to pick a house that night and go into a packed house full of people, leaving people behind. And there's lots of allegations that Dylan Mortensen may have lured Kaylee Gonsalves to the house that weekend to be murdered. The media has done everything they can to basically spin the narrative that Brent Kohberger's only interest was killing Maddie Mogen. That's the only person he wanted to kill, and everybody else was just collateral damage. That's the story the media has been pushing. That's kind of the story they pushed at court during the plea deal, was that Brian came in there to kill Maddie, and everybody else just happened to get in the way. When many people believe that Dylan Mortensen lured Kaylee into the house that weekend because Kaylee was the real target, and there's many reasons to believe that Kaylee was the real target. Law enforcement in the early parts of the investigation thought that Kaylee was the real target. They thought so because the wounds were more significant on Kaylee than anybody else, and they thought it was a targeted attack on Kaylee. And they quickly then swept that under the ego, or under the ego. I read the word ego when I was looking in the corner of my eye. They swept it under the rug and changed the narrative of Maddie was the one who was the target because she was the first that was killed, and therefore everybody else just got in the way. Kaylee woke up in the middle of Maddie being killed, and she got it so bad because the killer was pissed off that he got interrupted. That's the new narrative about why Kaylee's wounds are worse than everyone else. He got mad being interrupted, and she fought back. By the way, let's not forget that if she fought back, she was probably screaming. I don't know who fights back being stabbed by not making any noise, but Dylan didn't hear anything. She did hear whispers like somebody's here, or don't worry, I'm here to help you. She could hear those whispers, but she apparently did not hear anybody screaming, including Xana, who fought back as well and put up one hell of a fight. These people apparently fight in pure silence while they're being stabbed to death. So I don't mean to be gross, but it doesn't make sense. Most people who are critical thinking, none of that story makes sense. And again, the grand jurors, according to leaked testimony that came, I think, from James Patterson, the famous author, grand jurors thought that the girls should be investigated, that there was something wrong with those girls. Michelle Weber says, am I the only one who saw Brian ask a state trooper in PA, did you arrest anyone else? So this is a rumor that's been going around for forever that Brent Kopacka, one of the first things he said was, has anybody else been arrested? You're saying you actually saw it. I always remembered it being something that has been reported as has been said. I didn't know that there was a video. Did you see a video of him actually saying it? Because that has been out there for a long time. That one of the very first things that Brent Kopacka said upon his arrest was, has anybody else been arrested for this? Because again, many people believe if Brent Kopacka did it, he didn't do it alone. It doesn't make the facts of the story do not make sense for one person to have done it alone. what do you think about the interview Steve Gonzalez gave before the hearing, referring to the fallen vet involved in the case? I heard that Steve Gonzalez mentioned the name Brent Kopacka, but I don't remember what specifically Steve said about Brent Kopacka. So maybe you have to refresh my memory. So to clarify, somebody said there was no video of Brian Kohberger saying, has anybody else been arrested? It was a reporter who said it, and it was never verified. I just read the story on Google the other day. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, and maybe that's what somebody means when they say, didn't you see, or I saw Brian saying this. It was probably more you saw a reporter saying Brian said it. So you did see it on TV. You did see it reported on TV more than likely. But I don't know that anybody has seen Brian Kohberger saying those words, and it may or may not have actually happened. That's the tricky part. But I believe that if Brian Kohberger did these things, he didn't do it alone. And that may have been that may have legitimately been one of the first questions he asked. Has anybody else got picked up for this? Because I'm not the only one that was there that night. How did he sneak inside, through the kitchen, down the hall, up the stairs, past Santa Canordal while she was getting and eating DoorDash? I mean, yes, I've seen Dateline put together their explanation. I've seen Gray Hughes put together their explanation. If you work with the evidence enough, you can get a way in which it happened. You can get a way in which it happened. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't think it's the most plausible way to happen, but you can work yourself through it. Again, if you already have decided how it happened and you need to make things fit, you can kind of make it fit if you're good at doing that. Judge accidentally started saying Kopacka instead of Kohberger in court one time. I remember that. I remember hearing about that as well, that he actually kind of Freudian slip said Kopacka. And I think Kopacka, I still suspect Kopacka as being part of this, but that's just me. I'm looking through comments here to see if we got anything more. We got about 15 more minutes left of this. Yeah, this is my sentiment as well. I don't want it to fit. I want it to make logical sense. I would like that as well. And that's the thing. People are busting the nuts of people like me saying, let it go, man. What is there more to talk about? The guy confessed. It's over. You're just a sore loser. I'm like, no. It's not over. People plead guilty to things all the time that they didn't do. And whether Brian Kohberger did part of it or not, it doesn't make any sense. The story makes no sense. And so I have a lot of questions, and a lot of people have a lot of questions. And I guess we will keep asking those questions, especially if they lift the gag order. If they lift the gag order, then we'll see, right? We'll see things. Because there's some really good internet sleuths out there. And I'm not even saying I'm one of them, but there's some really good internet sleuths out there. And when we get a hold of the documents and start going through with a fine-tooth comb, we're like, what the fuck is this? How could it even be possible? That's what I'm expecting. We're going to see something and be like, how the fuck is it even possible? I'm not ready to analyze the firefighter yet, but it's on the back of my mind. So thank you, Avi, for bringing that up. It's on my mind. But the rumors I hear about the firefighter leave me unable to verify them. And so I just don't want to go too far down it personally. Why would Brent Kopacka be involved? I'll try to be brief because it's circumstantial. Brent Kopacka's family is from Pennsylvania. Brian Kohberger's family is from Pennsylvania. There is a really good possibility that the two of them knew each other. In fact, one true crime sleuth pointed out specifically where Brent Kopacka lived within about 7 minutes, I think, of where Brian Kohberger was going to school, that they were in the same city. Fast forward, then you find Brent Kopacka and Brian Kohberger, who came from a very small town within minutes of each other in Pennsylvania, suddenly within 2 miles of each other in Pullman, Washington, which is the butt crack of Washington State. There's nothing there. It's a little podunk place. The entire town is nothing but a college town. It's tiny. So the randomness of Brent Kopacka and Brian Kohberger living in the same city together in Pennsylvania, and then coming out and living in the same city together within 2 miles of each other in Pullman already is a weird coincidence. And then you fast forward to a judge early on slipping up and mentioning Kopacka's name in relation to the case. Then you mention that Kopacka's best friend said, you know what, when the cops showed up and shot and killed Brent Kopacka 1 month after the murders, he believes, Darren Duncan, who's the friend of Brent Kopacka, believes the law enforcement may have believed that Brent was involved in the murders. That's straight from one of his friends. And when they got there, the apartment had been emptied. There was no furniture in there, which they thought was super fucking weird. And then they found out that Brent Kopacka's phone had been factory wiped, so that there was no data on the phone, which Darren Duncan said was super fucking weird. So they all think that the death around Brent Kopacka was super suspicious and super weird, and they may have actually known each other from Pennsylvania. So that's why people keep bringing up Brent Kopacka. And I've heard there's a new video out where somebody might have, was Atlanta from Truth and Transparency has a picture that might show that Brent Kopacka was actually at the Corner Club that night. That would be an, I don't know if it's true. If it's true, that's enormous if Brent Kopacka was at the Corner Club that night. Thoughts on Lisk's daughter. I'm just coming up to speed with the Lisk story. And of course, the questions always get asked, how much did the family know? How much did the wife know? How much did the daughter know? I saw new evidence today, because I'm just getting into the case, that it's possible the wife may have been involved with I don't even want to go there yet. Crazy shit. But it's coming out from pretty legitimate sources. An attorney standing next to a chief of police in the case, talking about how maybe Asa and Rex were swingers, that they had sex parties back in the 90s, that maybe the family knew more than we think they did. And so I'm not sure exactly what you are asking specifically about the daughter in particular. But there's questions now, again, as to how much the family knew. And I don't want to pick on the family prematurely. But at first I was like, I can understand, because the idea was that Rex Heuermann would do the killings when the family was out of town. And I could understand how the family would have no clue what's going on if indeed any of the murders that happened inside the house, if they were, and again, allegedly, because we don't know, if it was happening while they were on vacation, you could understand how they didn't know. And maybe some of it is blind. I don't want to know. But yeah, there is some stuff there. Birdie is on and on. Birdie is on with an online spirit board. I know what you're talking about. I think I didn't see it. I'll have to ask him about that later. All right. What else? I think it was interesting though. I don't have a TV. Okay, hold on. That's not true. I don't have a TV. I'm from PA and knew the local affiliate who filmed it. I saw it on YouTube. Okay, so is that going back to Michelle saying you saw Brian Kohberger actually say, has anybody else been arrested? If so, that's great. Like, I don't mean to say that you're wrong. I'm just saying all I've ever heard is it was allegedly said. So if you saw it with your own eyes, that's interesting for sure. What else? Lots of so it looks like Birdie Bombshell's getting a little flack from some of the comments tonight. I'll have to check in with Birdie and see what happened there. As you know, I go live with Birdie on Mondays. It's been an interesting pairing for us to go together, and I have nothing but respect for Birdie and what he's done for my channel and helping me out. He made an intro for me. That's what you saw if you were here at the very beginning. He made the intro for me. When we go live together, Birdie and I have a lot of great time. So I don't know what's going on with Birdie. It sounds like some shit's gone a little south with Birdie and some of his followers. So I'll check that out later. I can't speak to that because I have no idea what Birdie's doing over there. I do know, by the way, that the slight difference between Birdie and I is Birdie is a little bit, he's a more of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of guy. He'll take something that's said to him right now and immediately go on it and start digging into it live. I tend to vet things before I go live and try to make sure that I feel comfortable with where I'm going with it. And so that's been the hardest part of the difference between us who go live, because a lot of times you'll pitch something and be like, hey, this is the first time you've heard this, go. And I'm like, man, I don't like to go too far down a rabbit hole of something I just heard just now. So anyways. I heard Sammy T Mafia got kind of ripped on the show as well. So interesting there. Any other questions about Luigi Mangione, Brent Kopacka, or Rex Heuermann? We got about 6 or 7 minutes left. Any other questions and comments? I want to thank everybody for coming in. I saw a lot of people from all over the world, literally all over the world and all over the United States, who checked in tonight. It's very, very cool. I appreciate that. I got videos still coming out this week. The channel's still kind of growing, which is great. Even though some of these cases are coming to a close, and but new ones are opening up, new avenues. Any other comments? Last call for a question you've been burning to ask while you got us on a relatively small room. Relatively, not bad. 122 is not super small. Openings. Hello, you came in late today. Look into Rex Heuermann and the Route 29 killer. I will write that down. Duly noted. Thank you. Yes, please like this channel, this video today real quick before you leave. Make a notification. By the way, I don't say this enough. Some people have been claiming that they put on notifications for my videos and then they don't get notified when I go live. I found out, I didn't even know this, when you have that notification bell, there's 3 levels of notifications. You want to click on the notification that says all notifications, not just for videos or whatever. So maybe that's what's happening, is some of you are just clicking the notification bell to be notified. And apparently there's multiple levels of what do I want to be notified on. So you might need to drill into all notifications if you want to be notified about the lives. I don't know that's 100% true, but I think that's something that somebody just showed me. On the way out, do you think Brian and Kopacka could have done it together? Yes. Just that's a simple yes. It could have done it together. Yes. Did you follow the Delphi murder case? Your thoughts on Richard Allen? I did not follow it heavy. I watched some of the interrogation videos, but I didn't watch the case enough to comment on it, unfortunately. And I watch a lot of true crime, but that's one that I didn't get in enough to feel comfortable, unfortunately. But thank you for asking. Who were the cowboys at the 1122 King Road? I think they were agents. I think they were federal agents, I think is what it said. I don't know if they were FBI, if they were marshals, or what they were, but I think someone indicated that they were federal. There were federal agents of some kind. They had gone into the house, looked around, came back out, and left. I'm not sure. All right. I think we are good for tonight. We're at the 4 minutes to go. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you again for coming in. Thank you, everybody, for telling me when we were at the beginning where you're chiming in from. It's so cool to see everybody from all over the world and all over the United States. I will have more to say. Tomorrow is Thursday. So I have a noon, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time live tomorrow. I'll do that Thursday live. And then Friday, I have the 6 p.m. live followed by the After Dark show. I think Birdie is going to join me in the After Dark show, which will be for some drinks, some adult conversation. It's 18 and older, only adults on Discord, streamed to my Backstage account if you're interested in that kind of thing. write to me if you need more information. It's on the schedule. It should be there. There's a website that I have, devilsadvocates.info, that lists the schedule and has links to all the videos, including the After Dark party. So that is, let me put that up on the screen real quick on the way out. Add to stage. Oh no, let's go remove that. Let's go stop the screen and add. I'm just going to try to get something on the way out, and I'm really, really struggling with this. All right. There is my website, devilsadvocates.info. As you can see on the front page, here's my schedule for the week. That's already been done. That's already been done. Wednesday's show, you're in it right now. Thursday, there's a link to tomorrow's live. That thumbnail may change because I've been trying to change the thumbnail just before I go live, or as shortly before I go live as I can, or as whatever, as early as I can. There's the link to 6 p.m.'s show and the After Dark party. So check it out. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like. If you want the notification bells and you don't want to miss the live, make sure you click on notifications all. And that is it for tonight. See you guys later. Thanks for checking in.